Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 65. This is a developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey.
Whoa, you got through the whole thing without errors? I think because you're showing off for the guest today. That's how I.
And who is our guest today, Steve?
Returning to the pod is Joe Cieplinski,
Yay.
friend of ours and Philly Coca member for life. I say, even if you live in Colorado now.
Is that our first returning guest?
It may be.
It may be. You might be our first returning guest.
The returning champion. All right.
And it's not even it's funny. It's like we're recording this at the end of April, so it's not too far off from a year.
Right.
So,
right. I think you are our first, particularly our first guest of the year, so you have that as well.
Nice.
Even though I don't think we particularly booked that many guests, it's kind of like a on a lark kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, you want to do it? Let's do it.
We should do more guests because then we don't have to think of topics.
Yes. Well, I am sort of curious. One of the reasons why we brought you on, Joe, is because you have a new app out on the App Store. What was it, last week or the week before? I think it was last week, right? That you've just released it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been sitting on my phone for so long that you forget. Like, when did I release that? Did I actually release it? It was one of those things where a good friend of ours, mutual friend of all of ours, Curtis Herbert, pushed me. He basically said that we've got this conference coming up in Chicago, right? It's the Deep Dish Swift.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, and I've been telling him about this app off and on. I've just been playing around with it. Well, I'll get into more what it's about in a second. But he basically was like, well, ship it before then. Like, have it to ship so that you can tell people you have a new app when you go to this conference.
Leave it to Curtis to push you to greater heights.
Yeah. Because otherwise, it probably would have stayed just hanging out on my phone and iPads and Vision. But yeah, so the app is called The Last Word. Believe me, the hardest thing about this app, other than the screenshots for Vision, which we can get into, was naming the darn thing, because there are about 1,000 cocktail apps out there, and all the good names are pretty taken. I don't know if
problem too. Something I'm working on. Like, there are no names. Even ChatGPT is just regurgitating names everyone else uses.
Exactly.
We had joked about it prior. We were saying
we can't remember your name of the app, man. We all blank on it every time.
I looked at the acronym on the when I'm on the home screen, and I was like, TLW. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And I think Steven, you had to like remind me what that was.
No, I'm sure it'll come to me eventually, but it's like I guess because there must be a story behind why it's called The Last Word.
Last Word.
And
Absolutely.
That would help.
Yeah, so The Last Word is a very famous classic cocktail.
So that's why we're all ignorant.
It's a gin drink with some hints of cherry and lemon juice, and
we were making all sorts of.
We had
Facebook
no idea.
memes.
We're just idiots over here. We don't drink enough. Apparently,
get rid of the.
We're lime juice.
See, without you around, we don't drink enough anymore.
Yeah, there it is. That's
no exposure to good alcoholic beverages.
Well, the app contains non-alcoholic beverages too, if you're interested.
I did notice that, and by the way, I appreciate that because my girlfriend does not drink, so we are always looking for good cocktails that are non-alcoholic.
I'm going to be adding some more to the library as we go. But yeah, so basically the idea behind the app is that if you're like me and you like making cocktails at home, this isn't really made for like bartenders like memorize every drink that was ever made in the universe, and they kind of just have it in their heads. Although a lot of people who do mixology for a living and, as a hobby, kind of like they like experimenting, they like playing around with their own recipes. So I wanted to build an app that basically let me keep track of my own recipes. Little tweaks that I make to them, so you can add notes to them. You could say, okay, I tried a little more gin, or I tried a little bit more Campari this time and I hated it, that kind of thing. You can make your notes as you go. You can also download from a library. So I'm building out a library right now. There's only about 80 or so drinks in there, but there'll be a lot more over time, hopefully.
Only 80.
Yeah, there's thousands of cocktails out there, really.
That's enough to get seriously drunk.
Yeah, yeah. Don't attempt to do all 80.
Spread it out
once.
Spread it over at least a weekend.
But I tried to hit the most basic classic ones, your martinis and your Manhattans and those kinds of things. But anyway, the idea is to have those, and then you take them. You can. So that kind of gives you a starter recipe. that you then can tweak as your heart's desire. And you can always have it there as a reference. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like, I'm not good at memorizing recipes, even when I'm cooking. Like, it's good for me to have it written down somewhere. And so I just wanted a way to keep track of all that. And there's an old app back. Remember the guys from Studio Neat? They're still around, but for like a half a minute, they started making like some cocktail type oriented hardware stuff. And they built this app called Highball. And Highball was a great app for this. It was basically just keeping track of your recipes. But because they stopped selling those types of products, they stopped developing the app. And so the app is technically still in the store, I think, but they haven't updated it in like 4 or 5 years. So I think Apple is probably going to kick them off the store eventually. I don't know about y'all, but I've had a couple apps kicked off in recent years.
I get that message comes to me like every year. I get one of those for the store I manage.
Put out an update or else
dying.
You haven't updated this app in 3 years.
Yeah. And the insulting part is like, and it's not really getting many downloads, so we're going to take it off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not getting enough downloads, whatever that threshold is. It's like, okay.
Right. So if I didn't update it for 5 years, but I was getting 500,000 downloads a day, I guess you'd leave it on. Okay,
maybe.
I get it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I built this app out for myself basically because I was afraid that app was going to go away, and I wanted something. And it also gave me an excuse to play with a lot of new stuff. So I love building brand new apps. I can use all the newest technologies. I said the heck with caring about anything but iOS 17, and visionOS. So basically, I just went straight into SwiftData. The whole thing is SwiftUI. Everything I could possibly use that was new API wise, including Vision, which was awesome. So I got my Vision a few months back, and I absolutely love the thing. And so it's funny, like during the whole beta period, Apple kept, they would write to us, and say basically like, hey, come to the labs, come build a Vision app, and I was like, I don't have any good ideas, but I thought with this thing, well, this might actually be an interesting app to have in Vision, because while I'm making the cocktail, I can actually have the recipe right there right in front of me. And it actually, I thought, okay, well, this might be an interesting idea. So it wasn't until after I got my Vision that I took this app. So it's a universal app. I actually have a Mac version that hasn't shipped yet. I do, like, Mac apps are still way too hard to make good. So there's a lot, and especially when you're building in SwiftUI, there's like a lot of workarounds. But it's in pretty good shape, but I'm going to make it better. But anyway, so I had it going for phone, iPad, and Vision. Phone, iPad, and Mac off the bat, and then I added Vision, and I was actually surprised at how quite easy it was to translate directly into visionOS.
Do you have any screenshots while we're talking? I don't know anyone on the web with the Vision, because I don't know what that would look like. Maybe you can just describe it. Paint a picture.
You
in our minds.
You can go to the App Store.
For visionOS, and I have those screenshots.
There should be like a drop down. So if you go Apple Vision in that category where it says screenshots.
Oh, okay.
We're in the
App Store. There it is. Yeah, so there you can see.
I like this one.
Yeah, they'll load in.
Oh, there we go.
So basically, it's a super simple.
They're not using
split navigation controller, right? But on Vision, there's more of a tendency to move towards like that side tab bar. So I kind of utilize that a bit. But again, no fancy, like here in Boulder where I live, the team that actually works on a lot of the Vision software, not all of it, but particularly all the like iOS and iPadOS compatibility and stuff like that, is right here in Boulder. And so we hang out with those folks every now and then for pizza. And one of the good pieces of advice I got from them was basically like, don't add 3D for the sake of 3D. Just make an app. Like if your app makes sense, it's just a recipe tracker, right? Basically. So you just basically want the recipe in your face. You don't need to have like spinning glasses and other kinds of 3D stuff just for a gimmick.
I like the idea of putting a thing on my head and then making a drink for people.
I have
entertainment and beverage.
You could like just do the practice run of like, how do I do the mixing and then the shaking? You get some fluid physics in there.
The basic idea makes sense though. It makes sense to have it in Vision Pro.
Yeah, I mean, as far as keeping a reference to it and not looking like when other people are watching me make a drink and they see me with my phone like trying to memorize the recipe, it's like, oh, what the hell kind of bartender are you? It's like, well, sorry, I don't do this for a living, so I don't memorize all these recipes. But the cool thing about Vision is they don't see me doing that. They don't see that I have a cheat sheet sitting right in front of me.
So I see you wearing a giant pair of goggles with eyes. No, not even eyes. It'll just show a little visual thing in front of your face, right? Because you're looking.
And I just want to get one of those like Daft Punk like helmets. With
I was actually just thinking
that would look cool.
Yeah. I was gonna make a joke about that, but I held off. Thank you for reading my mind.
if you held a cocktail party, you would most definitely be Instagrammed to death.
No, there'd be no photos allowed during the mixology sessions.
That's right.
Yeah, you just have to hide in hide in in a closed kitchen somewhere so nobody sees you doing it.
So the way it looks on here for those listening, it's looks like 2D. It's a 2D thing with as you said, with a split view. It's kind of iPad-ish, right?
Yeah, there are a ton of drawings of your drinks.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things that stick out about this particular app for me, is that the personality of the app really doesn't particularly display itself until after you select a drink, or you decide, okay, I want a Americano or something like that. And then you see sort of the personality spritz out, so to speak, with no pun intended.
Yeah.
So I want to get a sense of your design process because you could have easily gone a very generic route, and I think a lot of the things about a Joe Cieplinski app is that it's a very opinionated app in my mind. In terms, regardless of what it is, whether it be Fin, Recaf, there's always an intentionality to sort of say, this is where I want the thing to express itself. So you do a lot of understated approaches. Like for I think Fin, you've made it a lot back in the day. You made that particularly much more gesture based. So you really didn't display the gesture. You didn't really display a lot of controls, which probably in the beginning people would have been frustrated with. Over time, once they got the gestures, it would have made sense. And so I think this one, I'm kind of curious where you thought, because for example, I'm looking at your app right now on the iPhone. You have no sidebar, or at least as far as I can tell, you don't have a sidebar.
No tab bar.
No tab bar.
Yeah, no tab bar. Yeah,
there's just a navigation stack. It looks like.
Right. Yeah. And I don't even see my recipes at all until I go into either favorites or all. So or whatever my category.
That was a striking design decision. I thought when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's different.
It's interesting. A couple of people have commented on that, and for me, that was it was weird. I never even considered doing it as a tab bar app. I always thought of this as a 3-pane split navigation. So it's one of those navigation split views where you add a content and detail. The sidebar content and detail, and that makes a lot more sense when you look at it on the iPad. But yeah, even on the phone, for me, if I go back to the app that inspired me most here, which was Highball, they had these cards. It was basically just a long list of cards, and you would tap each one, and they had this kind of custom animation that would flip up recipe cards. And they didn't have any tabs either. And I think the reasoning behind that, at least the reason why I stuck with that, is that I wanted the focus to be on your list of recipes. So 99% of the time you're going to open this app, you're just going to find the recipe you want. Either you're going to do a quick search or you're going to scroll to it, and you're going to go straight to your recipe. I don't need to be seeing my library tab. It kind of bugs me about the music app, to be honest with you. I don't need to be seeing browse and radio and these things that I never use ever on my screen 24/7. Yeah,
the new home button.
Home, home. I'm why am I home in music? Yeah.
What does that even mean?
I still don't know what the difference between browse and home is, or used to be for you, or whatever they call it. To me, that's tabs just for the sake of tabs. It's taking up screen real estate, and I don't really need it most of the time. So yeah, I get it. If you open it on your phone, your first thought, there's a big plus button there to go grab some recipes, but I could see you saying oh, I didn't even know there was a back button there that I can go back and see. Now I have where my settings are, where all those other things. It's kind of like a hamburger menu without the hamburger, if you will.
Right.
But if you think about mail, that's kind of how mail works, right? And that's how the new the latest reminders app for Apple and the Notes app, they're very similar. Apple has a similar aesthetic where they're basically saying, rather than showing tabs on all the time, basically, you're probably going to live in this one list 99% of the time, and then you'll go over there to this other section when you need it. And rather than trying to fit everything that you want in those couple of tabs that you're stuck with, and then having a big more, which is just a hamburger menu on the bottom, I just wanted to have that kind of an option.
Yeah, something like reminders or your app. You're essentially operating on one data set. Primarily in reminders, where it's just a bunch of reminders, and you're just kind of looking at it with different views, so it's one data set. So it makes a lot of sense. You think about it, why do I need tabs to do that? That might be even unnatural. And this, I think I agree with you.
Yeah.
It works.
There are other forms of lists, so you can narrow that list down if you go back into that kind of sidebar, you can
Yeah.
see like, oh, I can show just my gin drinks, or I can save a search of like, these are all the ones with lemon juice, here are all the ones with cherries.
Yeah,
You can
it's
make
cool.
those searches yourself. One of the things I wanted to add is like a collection where you can make a folder full of particular recipes. Because I can imagine a scenario where it's like, okay, I'm going to throw this party. I want to do just this subset of like 8 cocktails, and that's all I'm going to make for the night, and just put that in a single list. So that's all you see all night. So filtering that list is kind of important. But for the most part, you have search, and for the most part, like you can add recipes pretty quickly that way. And so I didn't feel like the need for those like settings to be sitting there on your screen all day long. As far as the artwork goes, that was actually one of the motivations for doing this. Back in the Stone Age, about 18,000 years ago, remember when Apple did their whole iMessage stickers for messages? I had a sticker pack of cocktails.
I remember this.
that.
That's why these look so familiar to me.
Yeah, they're not
Aesthetics.
exactly the same, but basically that was where I started. So I had a lot of these forms for different glasses, shapes, and things of that nature. But the cool twist here is like, obviously with stickers, I would make bespoke images for each individual drink, and it was like just this one, Illustrator image. Whereas with this, basically, I give people the ability to customize it to their heart's content. So you could put your cocktail in a rocks glass if you want, or you could put it in a coupe, or you could put it in a Nick and Nora. You can change the color. You can add ice. You can add fizz to it. You can add whatever garnish you want to. And so I mean, yeah.
Is that a bunch of images, or you doing something in SwiftUI for that?
Yeah, it is. It's all done with individual layers of PDFs. Basically, there's different layers. So the back of the glass, the top, the front of the glass, because the contents are kind of in between. So you have to, like, if you want your garnish to kind of, be in front of the back of the glass, but behind the front of the glass, that kind of thing. It's actually pretty complex. But and then there's kind of a layer in the middle that I can tint different colors to change the color of the drink depending on what's in it. And then the garnish, a lot of that is like a matter of like, it's one image, but then for each type of glass, I have to know exactly where to position it on the glass.
I can add whipped cream on this thing.
Yeah, there's whipped cream. There's all kinds of stuff you can add to it. I want to add more because there's actually more things you could imagine in certain cocktails.
So these are SwiftUI views that the user is layering on top of each other to make.
Yeah, so I have this drink view that basically layers up all these different options, and so I'm basically saving the drink image object as basically it's just a struct with a bunch of things. Does it have ice or not, or what kind of ice is it? What color is it? What glass is it in? What's the garnish? What's the and so I add all those things together, and then that view will then generate the appropriate image. Now, obviously, you can imagine a scroll list of 300 of those going at once would be impossible. So I also take a snapshot of it. So as you edit it, I snapshot it really quickly as a PNG that then gets saved to the main recipe object. And so that data then is the basis of the image until you edit it again.
Oh, wow. Really cool.
Interesting.
Clever.
So this way you can scroll very efficiently. Yeah.
So when you save the image, are you saving that in SwiftData, or are you saving it as a? Yeah,
I'm actually saving the image data because I'm thinking unless you had like 16,000 cocktails, you probably aren't going to run into memory problems with that. I know there's different thoughts on those than that whole thing, but like for me, I just like saving as much stuff directly in the database as I can. And so for things like images, if it's something like this where it's like there's not a huge image, it's not like super gigantic file size wise, I just save it directly into the database.
Nice.
Right.
You said you're also saving searches with this. What does that structure look like?
Yeah, it's basically just an ID, a unique identifier, the term that you search for, right? So
the term.
Yeah, so basically whatever you search for, then I filter out by that term.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was like something more complicated, like make custom predicates or something.
I could have. Well, yeah. I mean, the predicates are basically just whatever text you throw at it. But I could have. I was thinking about that. I could have given it a separate name because you might like search for non-alcoholic, but then you want to call it mocktails. I probably could have added a name to the search so that you could rename it just for it would look nicer on your sidebar. But I didn't do that. I basically just left it as an ID, which it's not visible to anyone. The ID.
Is all this data in here that it starts out with? That's just in the bundle, or do you have some place you download things from?
Yeah, so when you open the app the first time, you have no cocktails, right? But if you hit the plus button, you can view the library. That library file is actually just a giant JSON file on my server. So that comes down. That's the only thing that touches the server in this app. Other than the StoreKit stuff, which it's all rolled within.
I would like to talk to you about the StoreKit stuff, but before we get to that, I've been doing a bunch of SwiftData stuff, and Kotaro knows we had side project Saturday. And are you making like multiple models with relationships? Because my problem was when I did that and I took them from a server. I took a JSON files from a server with Codable, right? And then I would turn them into models. When I went to do the appending to do the relationship stuff, that's the slowest thing ever. It'll take like, like 20 seconds, for like a few hundred, like many-to-many relationships. And I can't find any way of making it faster.
Yeah, I mean, my data structure is probably a lot simpler than yours. So I don't run it. So yes, I do have, so to answer your question, I have the basic models, the structs that are being saved into the database, and then the recipes that are in the library are a different format of so they never go into the database, right? That's what I made Codable.
So you just load the JSON directly.
So I load the JSON directly and parse those into this object, this separate recipe Codable object, right? And then that base, I call it recipe for export because originally the idea behind it was that so that you can export, which is also a thing. But basically you take that and that's all that's shown in that particular view, but it's not until you import it that I then convert that into
okay, that's what I was saying with Kotaro. It seems like SwiftData is designed with the idea that you're creating models, the SwiftData model objects, like the user is doing it. It's not really designed for importing a bunch of stuff from somewhere else. Like it works and it's fast enough when you're just putting models in. Like I'm taking JSON parsing with Codable into structs, and then I have like a custom initializer on my model objects to just take in the structs and do like, property equal, blah, 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 back and forth.
Right.
And that part's not too slow, but it's if you have like even a small number of items that have relationships between them, when you get to the part where you're trying to do relationships on an import, it gets really slow. But if you think about it, SwiftData seems to be more about like you're doing. Like if, I'm going to create like one object or a couple of model objects at a time. And especially when you think about it, that most of the SwiftUI interface for it all runs on the main context.
Right.
So like if you start doing too many things on the main context, and I'm doing things in the background, that still didn't make it fast enough. But if you think about just the way that Apple tells you to use SwiftData, it's main context. It's very user focused. So I get that. And I think I'm hitting their design decision about it, like their focus. I think I'm hitting the wall. Like I want to do something that it's not quite designed for.
I think that's common with a lot of, especially newer APIs from Apple, right? They kind of design it. They show you this really fancy demo at DubDub, and it's like that demo is like a little bird. I remember the bird feeding app or whatever. And there's like 12 objects in there. It's like, well, this is not gonna survive. An app that has tens of thousands of objects.
But, it is so nice though. Once it's in there, once the data's in there, it's slick.
Oh yeah, I mean, compared to doing, I still do on other apps core data within SwiftUI. SwiftData definitely lifts off a lot of extra baggage of having to write a lot of boilerplate and other things like that.
Upserting is cool.
There's a number of things about SwiftData I really like. I hope to see them keep pushing forward with it.
Are you using CloudKit at all?
Yes.
Sync at all?
Okay. Yeah, so that's how it's syncing between all your devices, including your it's syncing even to your Vision that way. So whatever recipes you put in one of your devices, it'll go to all of them, including whatever you've got out there.
Your app is like using all the things that I want to be using on something I'm making.
Well, that's what I mean. Like when you do a lot of client work, like I do, like you don't always get to use these things, right? Sometimes you're working on an app that's 10 years old and it's using Objective-C still, or other times, it has to still be compatible with iOS 13, it's like, okay, well then I can't do any of this and I can't do any of that. And that's why I loved having projects of my own where it's like, okay, this scratches an itch for me. I don't think this app is not going to be, it's not going to make me a millionaire anytime soon.
It's going to make you a billionaire.
That's right.
Why stop at $1 million?
There just aren't that many people who have this particular need.
Get rid of the.
Yeah. Facebook. That's right.
Facebook reference. Will our audience get it? We have a lot of young listeners.
Young audience who hasn't even seen the Facebook movie. That's interesting.
We're old men.
We were just joking in the off-topic channel on the Philly Slack group where somebody didn't get the reference to the Terminator 2.
Oh. The Terminator 2. Come on.
How young do you have to be?
We thought he was talking about. We thought we were joking about the Emma Watson meme, maybe
Yeah,
something
yeah.
related to
I
Harry
didn't get
Potter,
the Emma
but he was
Watson
actually
meme either.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
he didn't know Terminator 2. I'm like, really? I know it's old, but
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
Wow.
Showing
And
your
it's even on Netflix. It's a great movie. How can you anyway, all right, sorry. We digress.
Yeah, but
that's
it's-
that's the MO of this show. If you haven't listened to it in a while, Joe.
speaking of
Digression.
the interesting. So yeah, I mean, you asked me about the name and why I came up with the last word. Actually, another friend had actually suggested Sidecar, which is another classic cocktail, and I thought, ooh, that's cool because I wanted to call it. I had a bunch of different names. Like I said, everything I tried was something that someone else had already done a very similar related app to. It wasn't even like, okay, it's like off on the side weed somewhere. Like if you put the last word in search in the App Store, you're gonna get a bunch of word puzzles. You don't get anything cocktail related. So I'm like, okay, that's perfect. But Sidecar would have been perfect. And I love the Sidecar. It's one of my favorite drinks. But as soon as I thought of it, someone was like, I think Apple has a trademark on Sidecar, and they do.
Really?
So
wow.
yeah,
Right,
so
right.
because of the iPad sitting next to your Mac, they call that Sidecar.
Yeah.
And of course they trademarked it. So I was like, well, it's not alcohol drink related at all, but do I want to go up against Apple's trademark machine? No. So I let that one go.
Well, it's good. Now that we know it's a cocktail, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And,
Makes a little more sense.
The less ignorant who are probably your primary market, they'll understand.
They might at least get that it's, yeah.
But at least it's
So,
unique too, you know?
Yeah. And it's a nice conversation starter.
Yeah. And if you're searching for a crossword puzzle, you're going to find my app and maybe you say, hey, I could use
I'm
drink.
gonna take your app.
Maybe there's a cross section there.
That's right.
So I'm gonna take your app, Joe, and I'm gonna find some interesting cocktails I've never had, and I'm gonna take it to a bar where I know a guy is good. Well, actually, a brewery where there's a really good mixologist there. I'm gonna like, can you make this for me?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, most of the
good
drinks
idea.
in there are classics, so they
Yeah.
probably will know most of them. They
But
might
I
have
don't know.
They might have a different recipe because I've tweaked some of the
Right.
recipes
Yeah,
to what
yeah.
I like, but
But I don't even know like what most of these are. So just the database alone is valuable for me. So I'm gonna use it to just try out new stuff.
yeah. Well, you should try a last word. I mean, if you like,
I do now. Now that I know it's a drink.
yeah,
And
it's got a nice cherry tones to it. It's nice.
Now that you mentioned it, maybe a idea doesn't have to be taken. Would be a nice history lesson on the drink.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool. Or even a link to like Wikipedia or something.
Are you talking about like are you giving feature feedback right now? Like feature?
No, I love it. Yeah,
well, I already
did
did about the icon.
You can actually add a YouTube link to like, because there's a lot of YouTubers out there who make a lot of these cocktails. So if you find someone who made the drink that you like, you can add a link to any video really, or any web page. You could link to a web page if you wanted to that had a little more on the history of the drink or whatever like that. I just kind of left those blank. I don't add them in the library because I didn't want to like play favorites of whose drink I like better.
Right.
But you can add those yourself, and actually that's pretty cool, particularly in Vision. Again, when you're building, you could just say, "Oh, play that video real quick," and you can see, "Oh, that's how they did that."
Oh yeah, that would be pretty cool.
So yeah, I like the idea of a little history though. The history of cocktails is actually kind of fascinating, as you might imagine. A lot of cocktails, there's myths that people think this is where it was invented, but it really wasn't, and you find out all this like interesting stuff about like, oh, this used to be a drink back in the 1920s, then it was lost for like 50 years, and then someone else like found it in a book, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that would be a neat addition.
What's your issue with the icon, Coltrell?
Oh, nothing. I think the icon's wonderful. If you can,
he wanted a light version, which is coming.
If you can humor me for a second, I just need to move my app. Okay, so here is what it looks like on now, which in and of itself is not a big deal, but I could, like, if you squint your eyes, it kind of blurs into my background, which is a generic gray background.
Yeah,
nothing crazy, but it's one of those things where
I got you.
It was sort of a curiosity more than anything else.
Yeah. So I'm on like day 4 waiting for a review on that, by the way, but you will have a light icon soon.
This name though,
and a sticker pack. I added a sticker pack back into it.
Oh yes,
bring it back. Bring back the sticker pack.
The name in the App Store is actually a bar journal : the last word.
Yep.
Is this like App Store optimization stuff?
It's a little trick that Ariel from AppFigures taught me, which is basically, you basically, like, as much as you want to just call your thing the name of the thing, like Apple uses the first couple thing, like the very, like your app's title, the first word in there, the first 2 or 3 keywords in there is the strongest thing you can do for search. And so getting the word like bar in there, and I want a journal in there because that's kind of like hip right now. Apple released their journaling app. A lot of people are doing journal type stuff.
I have a journal app idea too that I was thinking of
Yeah. And
Just a
so
little
like
trick
even
window.
if you look at my app Recaf, it's called like caffeine tracking by Recaf. Yeah. And it's that
You know,
change alone made me like I jumped up like 40 places in search.
You know,
for caffeine.
yeah, you know, I was always so reluctant to do something like that when I was thinking about it because it's like you're right. I feel like it should be called like the shortest name you can think of and like a nice,
Right.
clever short name. But in fact, that's terrible for your you know,
ASO.
like search, App Store search. So it actually makes it easier to find a name that's not like literally a string in the App Store too that's not taken.
Right.
if you do
You know
that.
what's funny?
Yeah.
Like
That's good.
I'm looking at like the big mainstream apps. Granted, they don't need any
Right.
tricks in that sense. Like Roblox would be one, right? It's just Roblox.
Everyone knows Roblox.
I-
Yeah. Right.
And I know for the company that I work for, like it's just the company name and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those funny things is like there's so little optimization there, and I don't know if people know. Like I look at the keywords and I'm like, oh, well, that's repeated. That's
Yeah, I thought
repeated.
you were supposed to use keywords, or you're supposed to use that like secondary title thing for that, but it's still best to just put it in the main title.
Yeah, the secondary title is taken into effect as well, and it's even better than putting it. And the other thing that they strongly advise against is not Apple, but AppFigures, is repeating any of those words in your keywords. So in other words, if it's already in your title, don't bother putting it in your keywords. Right. And so yeah, I use the subtitle as well. I think I called it something like "document your cocktail journey" or something like that. Like I called it. Yeah. So basically, I wanted cocktail in there somewhere. And so again, I'll probably tweak this over time and see if I can get it better over time.
Do they frown upon, or do they encourage the idea of like if a word is like two words, like frosted flakes, right?
Right.
Would they want you to in the keywords? Would they want you to like keep that there as like frosted space flakes, or would they? I don't.
Yeah.
Or would they want you to put it as a comma, frosted comma flakes?
I forget.
In the keywords?
That's a good question. That's a good question. It will have two different effects. I know that much. Like so, frosted flakes, it would only return if the person actually typed both words.
Frosted, yeah. Right.
But will it return higher than someone who typed frosted or flakes? I don't know. That's a great question. Either way, you're probably going to get a trademark takedown from Kellogg's at that point, anyway. But I mean, in your keywords, they might not know that you're using it unless they see that. Like sometimes, like you can see people still use the keywords to like stack. And get search results on other popular app names.
I only ask because a lot of times I've noticed with not even my own company, but like companies that I've done consulting before, sometimes they're relatively big, is like their keyword optimization is horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and they do stuff like they're like come up with like plurals of the same word. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Right. Or they put in the same the company name in the keyword, and like you don't need to do that.
Right. Right.
You know, like all those are taken care of for you. You can even do shrunken versions of the same word.
Right. I mean, if Apple would actually publish this stuff, it would make it easier to convince those companies. So,
you were mentioning App Store stuff. I saw only today you had a subscription because I mean I didn't look on your website until tonight. I downloaded the app, started using it. Yeah. So what are you doing to implement the subscription? Because this is another thing that I've never done that I plan on doing, trying to do.
Yeah. So I get lots of feedback from Recaf because when you launch Recaf for the very first time, the first thing it makes you do is like, well, first you have to give it permission to use your HealthKit data, which makes sense. But then after that, it basically says, okay, start your free trial. And people get really angry because they're like, oh, you're just trying to force me. I'm going to forget, and you're just going to keep charging me. And I'm like, well, no, I'm just trying to give you a 14-day free trial. Like the app is pretty useless without that. So, so with this app, I was like, all right, let me do the more common thing, which is basically give people some restrictions, but like be able to basically use the whole app. So you can have up to 5 cocktails. And then when you try to add your 6th one, that's when it's going to prompt you to start either start a subscription, or you can actually, this is the first time I've ever done this too. You can actually do a full app unlock one-time purchase.
Oh, I saw that listed. Yeah.
Okay. So I made that basically like 3 years worth of.
It's like I've been reading your mind as you've been developing this app because I've had the same thoughts about implementing exactly the same way. But what are you actually using? What API are you using? The Apple's StoreKit or using something else?
I'm just using StoreKit 2. When Apple introduced StoreKit 2 a few years ago, they made this way easier. Now, again, if you talk to certain people, like much, much bigger apps, like super
Yeah, no
you know,
RevenueCat.
swimming in their monopoly money, like our friend Curtis. Like he does everything on a server. Well, first off, he has Android.
Well, he still does it
as
himself,
well.
right?
He does everything himself,
and server based.
And it's all server based, and that makes perfect sense for him because he has Android support. He wants to be able to sell family subscriptions at a discount on his website. He wants to be able to do all this other stuff that Apple can't do. But for a simple app for an indie, rolling it yourself with StoreKit, where it's like I don't really care if 5 people actually hack my app and figure out how to like get a free subscription, right? So basically, rolling it with StoreKit 2 yourself is not hard at all these days. It's way easier than it used to be. And yeah, you write a simple class that goes and looks at the entitlements and says, okay, is this person able to use your app or not? Then so it's and everything is async await, and it works really well. And I found it pretty bulletproof. So that's what I do now. And it's like I don't understand why more indies don't just do that.
I don't know. I
a day worth of work
harder.
Yeah,
I always
it used to be way harder.
Yeah. I always the recommendation I keep saying was, use RevenueCat.
Yeah,
and
but even RevenueCat, I mean, actually, I'll give you the great tip if you want to learn how to do StoreKit yourself. RevenueCat actually has a great blog article on how to roll it yourself, not use them, which I gave him a lot of credit for. When StoreKit 2 first came out, that was actually the tutorial that I used the first time I did this. I actually replaced my old server-based thing with this in Recap. And yeah, so I mean, to their credit, they're like, yeah, this is here and it's Apple's and it's great. And, we offer more. So use us, and so I don't. And again, if you're an indie, you're probably not going to hit RevenueCat's like where you actually need to pay them money for a while. If you need to start actually paying them money, then you're doing really well. Because I think that's free until you make like a crazy amount of money, right?
Yeah. So you've used RevenueCat before, and is this the article you're talking about?
It might be. I think it might be.
iOS in-app subscription tutorial with StoreKit 2 and Swift.
I think that might be it. Yeah,
I'll put that in the show notes. But I was just wondering if you've done both of these, what your experience was like. Because I see a lot of people where they'll have like a tutorial with StoreKit, but everyone is always like, use RevenueCat, and I'm like, are you all paid by RevenueCat, or is it just that awesome?
Well, a lot of podcasts are sponsored by them, so
there's no problem with that. But
and conferences and other things do, and that's what I mean. They're great people. They have a great product. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disparaging them at all, but I think even they would tell you that if you wanted to roll this yourself, it's not as bad as it used to be by any stretch of the imagination.
Because I was looking for minimum dependencies on non-Apple stuff.
That's what I'm after too. I have 0 dependencies in this app. Every awesome, bit of code in this app was written by me. So, and I just like that because I don't like 2 years later, I find out that a CocoaPod or whatever doesn't exist anymore. And now I'm screwed, obviously there are times where that makes perfect sense. And you just go ahead and do that and use them when you need to. But for this app, I didn't need to. And I was like, well, I'm not going to add a dependency just for this. I'm just going to use what Apple gives us. And I actually got to use they have it in SwiftUI now. Last year, they gave us what they call purchase views and full StoreKit views. So you can literally just tell it like, okay, pull up the view for my app, and you style it yourself. And basically it handles almost everything after that. But I didn't do that. Nice. I went the one step down from that, which is basically you can have individual products views and style those. So basically I wanted to have that kind of horizontal scrolling options. And so each one of those is a product view that literally just goes up to Apple's, like you put in the only thing the app knows is basically the Apple bundle IDs of the 2 subscriptions and the unlock. And I basically feed that to these product views, and the product, it handles the price, it handles, for any country that you're in and all that stuff. Wow. And then, from the second they press, all the purchase stuff, all I do is I get a call back to basically say, yes, the purchase went through, or no, it didn't. Or, they're a child who needs their parents to approve this, that kind of thing, which I hope isn't happening in this app. But, basically you can handle all those cases pretty easily.
That's cool.
That just like kind of hilarious because your app technically is rated 17.
17, yeah.
So in theory, it's 17 up, right? Yeah. So whatever, mature and up or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably had to be, right? Because it's
yes,
yeah. They make you answer that questionnaire, and it was like violence, drugs, sex, whatever, and then it was like alcohol, and it was like a little bit once in a while, frequently. I'm like, well, it's the whole app.
All the time.
I had to say frequently
all the time.
And that I was surprised that made it 17 plus and not 21 plus, but I guess
I guess there's 7, maybe there's 17 drinking age, or maybe it's just
other countries have 17 or 18 as a drinking age, but like
does the App Store have a 21
like inch
plus category?
Maybe they might not, and maybe that's why they don't push it there. But that was sort of
20. So
that was one of those things I didn't think about until I had to upload the app, and I'm like, oh, I didn't do this part yet, and I'm like, oh yeah.
was also wondering. I was reading, also looking at your terms of service and privacy policies. Like wondering where you grabbed that stuff from.
I grabbed that years ago from, and I basically like copied and pasted it from Recap, and I forget where I got it originally.
Yeah, and you just updated it. Yeah,
I probably borrowed like Slopes or something. I probably just took someone else who had written it, and then just made it relevant to my app.
There's so much administrivia now for putting apps on the store. It's like the privacy stuff that's coming up, and the EU trader thing.
Yes,
apparently you've doxed yourself unless you had your DUNS updated.
If you're if you're in Europe, then basically you can find my address now. That's fine.
Whatever.
I know it's silly, and I wasn't 100% sure whether I had to do it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to say yes, trader, whatever. The privacy thing was easy because that was just the user defaults. So there are a couple of videos on YouTube.
Yeah, I got to do that for
doing the user defaults one. It's really straightforward. It takes minutes.
Isn't there didn't somebody release some kind of command line tool to help scan your app? Because I have like that
makes sense.
I thought. See, I was also confused. I have an older app. It's like Objective-C. I think a lot of it might be grandfathered in because I have like really old dependencies that I probably can't update. So I was a little unclear about what the rules are for that.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that any older dependency, it only has to be added in when they update the dependency.
You update, I thought it was when you had a new app or you added the dependency in an update.
Right,
is what I thought. So,
maybe I don't know. It's a great question.
I have to look at it more carefully because I have a whole bunch of old stuff. Like one of them was like I think that Progress HUD thing. I have like ancient version of that. I'm like, why? Oh, right. I don't even know why. Why is that one of them?
And that's the trick. You have to look at their list, right, and see if the thing that you have is on their list. Yeah, it's. I mean, I could see it as Apple. I mean, I get it. They want they want you to take those privacy nutrition labels seriously, right? And it's kind of nice that you can do all that, and then it'll actually generate it'll spit out a report that basically tells you like this is what you have to put in.
Yeah, but I thought there was someone who made it. I have to try to find it. I thought someone made like a scanner tool to help you figure it out on your existing app. I don't know.
That would make sense, but I mean, I feel bad. That's another great reason not to use dependencies. I mean,
see, this is what I was thinking. I was like, I don't want dependencies. I don't want your data. I want to be able to have a privacy policy. I don't have anything.
Like the amount, I can't imagine like what you'd have to put down for like Google Analytics or like I guess it's now with the Firebase.
They should just add a button that says we steal everything you do. Yeah,
it's just like
give up. Just
I got to do the Firebase one.
I got to do all this. This whole list of stuff. Yeah, just copy this whole array, stick it in.
Yeah,
that's the one where I actually probably I have to I have to make sure I'm updated on that one because I do regularly update that one. So that one's going to be that's the main one is the Google Analytics. It used to be great. What did I use before? It was like what was that one that Twitter owned for a while?
Crashlytics.
I used Crashlytics. I used Crashlytics when it was Crashlytics by itself. Okay. And then it's evolved into this thing. So now I'm like Flurry? On Google. Was it Flurry or something like that? There was another thing I used. It was that. There was this one tool that Twitter ended up buying them, and it was like a dashboard thing of analytics, and it was the best. It was perfect for what I was using it for. And then they went away, and so I've been stuck with this Google Analytics thing, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all for app analytics. I find it confusing and annoying and slow, and it doesn't load all the time. It's just I don't like it at all. I don't like using Google's stuff in general, but
I understand.
Apple's stuff. You're not using any stuff. So you're just using Apple's back end stuff. Have you gotten
Crash
data
reports
yet?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say I've that's a good question. I haven't looked at crash reports yet, but I haven't seen anything.
I mean, because I haven't looked at those reports really very often lately, so I don't know how good they are anymore.
Yeah, who's downloading them from where and all that, what devices they were on. Yeah, it's a good question. I should look at those. I haven't really bothered since. It's pretty new, so I haven't really got too much data yet.
Do you look at them through a service like AppFigures, or do you do?
I have
it directly.
I do have an AppFigures account, and AppFigures I find is really super helpful for just the daily reports of like how much money did you make yesterday. Yeah. But then the other one is I like it because it'll notify me whenever someone reviews the app, and I really like that. Yeah. Or if Apple features me on a list somewhere, like Recap, like for a while there, it's just started getting featured again, like in Sweden. The Swedish app store, like great apps for caffeine tracking. And like you get put on the list.
AppFigures just integrates with like an API token, I guess.
Yeah, I think at this point I forget how that works. I think you give it basically you give it a user in your Apple account, basically App Store account, but you give it a fake like a user that only has access to analytics data, basically, or marketing data.
because I don't know. There's also a token you can generate for API access, the App Store Connect API. I don't know. If
They might be using that by now. I mean, this was years ago when I set it
but
up. So
I was just wondering if you were using AppFigures, if they have any of the new stuff that's only available in the API. Apple just released a whole bunch of reports that I haven't looked at because I don't have. You have to access them through the API.
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't tried that yet, so I wasn't even aware of that.
To look at. So you said earlier that you had this subscription model with the 3 tiers, with the one being the lifetime unlock. I guess it's really early, so maybe you don't know if it's working out for you. But I have heard anecdotally, like on the interwebs, that that's actually a good strategy. And
I was opposed to it for the longest time because I thought, oh well, if too many people buy it, I mean, if you make it too cheap, most people will go that route, and then you're back in that same situation
don't make
you're
it cheap.
in
Make
with
it
the paid upfront app.
At least 3 times your
3 times of what your annual revenue would be from the app on a subscription.
I've heard.
So it's enough of an incentive to say, well, do I want it? And so I've gone back and forth with most apps. Sometimes it's like I just want to support this app, and so I'll pay the yearly just I can keep
I do it. I do it all the time.
Yeah, other times. Other times the lifetime I lock, like the one on Flighty is one that I've considered so many times because I do pay like quite a bit for the whole family plan of that, and it's an indispensable app for me. But like the lifetime unlock is like $500, and I'm like, that's a lot for one time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And so it just always pauses.
I do the I did the OmniFocus one because I also had a discount though, so that's like a little different because they give me they give a really steep discount if you're upgrading your version.
Yes, they always have,
and then it just unlocks for that one version. And then the next time they'll have a different SKU, I guess, for it. But that actually, speaking of like OmniFocus, their deal, I don't know how they make money, honestly. I mean, because they keep getting cheaper. It's like now for the one price, you get it on all the platforms. I remember buying it for like each individual platform for like $100 a piece or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But,
and they just added it for Vision too. I think OmniFocus now is on Vision.
Have you used it? Because I heard it's a really good visionOS implementation. Like people were saying it was really good.
I haven't tried it yet, but I should totally download it. Like that's the problem with Vision. Like it's funny, I use it all the time, but I'm not like the apps I want for it. Mostly I just want more of Apple's apps to be native, like calendar and stuff like that. Although I use Fantastical and that's amazing. So calendar's not a good example, but like I think it's the Notes app. No, Notes is native, but like there's certain ones that you'd be shocked aren't native yet.
I mean, they're just iPad apps.
Yeah, they're iPad apps that you're running, and I'm like, because honestly, my biggest use case for Vision is basically I'm on my laptop and I just have my screen in front of me as if it's a giant 32-inch monitor, right? And then all of my I run just Xcode on my Mac, and that's literally it.
See,
and then everything else is just a Vision app around me, like my email and my messages and my Slack is all just running in Vision.
So buying 2 studio displays, you can just buy one visionOS.
Yeah.
So do you in terms of your like the amount of time you spend in the Vision Pro a day?
Yeah.
Would you say it's like 1-2 hours tops?
It's not every day,
long sessions.
Yeah, I do. I've done full 8-hour work days with breaks. I mean, I take a break, but I take breaks anyway. I get up and go to the bathroom. I go have lunch. You know what I mean?
You don't take that. You don't take that to you.
You'll take it into the bathroom.
No. I take it off when I go to the bathroom. Yes.
I don't know. Have you seen the Max Tech video where he demos this idea? Where he mirrors his Mac on his work machine, right? So he's working. And it's like, you know what? I need to go to the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom, opens up a Safari window for YouTube,
right,
and watches something on YouTube, and like goes into full environment mode. So he has like snow patches and whatever while he's watching like himself basically do a YouTube channel. And then when he's done, quote unquote, he leaves the bathroom, but he's still in his Vision Pro headset this whole time. So he leaves it. That window stays in the bathroom.
Right.
And then he goes back and he's only like he's not only in the next room down, but like then he goes back to his workstation again. And he's like thinking how crazy it is that he doesn't need to like do anything. He doesn't need to set it up again.
Right.
He just anytime he wants to go back to the bathroom,
well, that window's
his bathroom setup is all set up.
Until he takes it off, right? Doesn't it like disappear? You put it...
No. When you put it back on, all the apps that were open will pop right back up. As long as you don't shut the machine down. It's when you shut it down that you lose. It's kind of this weird mixture between the Mac and the iOS devices.
Sounds like better window management than Mac has, though. At least they stay.
Yeah.
Or they come back.
Well,
why is the window management so bad on Mac OS? Like, honestly, it's bizarre to me.
It is, well, it's funny because it's not that much better in terms of like you can do a lot of sloppy, like you can put windows overlapping each other and then like completely get confused of which one is which, and there's no like spaces to like break them out. Like I wanted to do something like if I was ever in that Max Tech scenario, not that I would ever bring my Vision Pro.
I'm not gonna bring my
bathroom.
$4,000 headset into the bathroom.
Imagine dropping that in the toilet. Yeah,
I just like
just to drop the battery.
Strap breaks at the wrong moment.
You're dropping your battery brick into the toilet. There's some metaphor here that I'm really crossing the line on. But one of the things that I wanted to do was like, it would be great if I had a window far away. Let's say I had a window far away that was down the hall. I would love to do like this force pull gesture to like
pull it right to me.
My hands and just bring it to me. Just bring all my windows. Right?
Did you
be able to use all these sort of gestures that you could theoretically do now?
Yeah, and
like really take advantage of that ability to just do like pinch the zoom or squash, or like if I wanted to like crush a window and just to basically remove it, I just
toss it,
with
or throw it out.
Coulter, did you see the MKBHD, whatever the heck his acronym is, the video he did at Disney with the VR floor, like the floor?
I've been meaning.
Part of that was they showed him a demo where they put something on the floor and then they had it hooked up so if you put your hand past a particular line, it recognized certain gestures. Literally what you're talking about, where you could like force push and pull the item on the floor and it would like move and you with your hand gestures. And I was like, that you could now I see why Disney wants this, because you put that into like a Star Wars exhibit. Yeah. And now you can be the Jedi. Right, and he had they have really good, lightsaber props. I'm like, oh, now I want that more than I want to be able to walk on VR. Like that seems kind of awkward. I want the force push and stuff around.
Yeah. That'd be pretty awesome, actually. Yeah. I expect we'll see a lot more coming soon with Vision in terms of window management. But yeah, it surprised me how good the 1.0 was. Let's put it that way. But
decades, and Mac OS doesn't have very good window management. So I don't know. I'm not holding
and don't even get started with iOS multitasking.
So
iPad.
I'm kind of curious. Now that you've, I didn't know that you had bought the Pro, but now that you've had it for a period of time, and now that you've got to work in it, I assume as well as develop for it. Where do you see it going from because right now I think we're sort of like, I was talking with these guys a lot about how I think we're just in like the baby phase. It's almost like the first, when the iPhone first came out, it really felt like, okay, we're still trying to figure this out. Like, don't expect miracles in us coming up. We're in the fart app phase, basically.
Right. What is with the bathroom humor coming from you today?
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Because the App Store came out and it exploded, and everyone went bananas, and entire careers, including my own, were based on that, right? I mean, I've everything I've done since 2008 has basically been the results of the original App Store on the iPhone, right? Yeah, it made my whole living possible. And then iPads came around, and that was still pretty awesome, and lots of new stuff, right? And then I remember when the watch came out, and a lot of people thought, "Oh, we're gonna make money again," and it was like, well, not quite. Like I don't know anyone who's making their living on a watch, right? But as an extra device and an extra screen, yes, but like the watch is limited in what it can do, and like that App Store, and then the Mac App Store came around, and it's like, well, more people are like, we're better off just selling
iMessage apps.
Right, iMessage apps came around, and everyone thought, I made my sticker packs, and everyone thought, oh, we're gonna make money again. And it's like, yeah, $2 a month. Or a year, if you're lucky.
It made me lots of great pizza money. I'll grant it that.
I'll take pizza money.
I will say that I wouldn't put Vision on the same plane as the watch. I don't think the watch is ever going to make anyone a living. I do think Vision, because they are focusing on a pro market right now, there is potential to get people who will actually pay like old school Mac money for an app. You could charge $500 for an app on Vision if it's the right app. Some of the right 3D type stuff. Some of what these doctors are doing with it, insane.
If it helps you make money, it helps the user make money, then it's definitely worth it. If it's a business expense.
Yeah, real estate agents who want to scan rooms really quick and stuff like that. Like making those 3D tours would be a heck of a lot easier with a Vision. Those kinds of things you can see, like there's potential there that you could find. And I do think you're right. This is absolutely baby phase. So we're going to have a small audience for a while. And like even Apple hasn't, like, in classic Apple style, they probably didn't even tell half their teams about Vision. So like they didn't have a native app on day one. Right. So it'll take some time. Like me, I'm learning how to write for Vision because it's like every other platform. So at some point, one of my clients is going to say, hey, can you make me a Vision app? And I better know how to do it by then. Right. So, you want to learn these things. And I do think the idea of augmented reality is not going anywhere. Tim Cook is all in on this. He's hell-bent on it. And I think the rest of the tech world is too. I think between Meta and all these other people, like there is definitely something there. The first time you put that thing on your head and you start using it, and especially when I sat down to work with it and I saw Xcode just like boom in my face, like not looking down at my laptop with Geek Neck and I'm like, oh, hovering over my keyboard, but I'm actually like, oh, the screen is right where it should be. You know,
I only had the 20-minute demo in the store, but the one thing that really stood out to me was when Safari came up, and I just was like, some text was there, and it was just like the size of a wall, and it was sharp as a tack, and I was like, how. Like, this is amazing. I was like, text or Xcode or something like that. Now I know it's I don't know how clear is the virtual display. Is it pretty crisp?
Yeah, it's pretty crisp. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you looked at it with a magnifying glass, it's not quite as crisp as like the 32-inch XDR display.
I'm using a failing Thunderbolt display from circa whatever here. It's like some weird stuff's happening on it.
It's clear as day, and it projects really well. And yeah, they did a lot of clever stuff that people don't realize is going on behind the scenes. Like when you push a window back 40 feet, it's adjusting the font size so you can still read it, right? It's doing all kinds of interesting, like if you thought about just like taking that screen and throwing it on a wall 40 feet away, you wouldn't be able to read the screen anymore, right? But then they're adjusting the content.
Are they is it something they're just doing at the like the graphics level, or is it okay? So it's not the what am I thinking of? Koto with the adjustable fonts.
It's not like dynamic text.
It's not dynamic text.
Yeah, not in the it's
not that part.
It's doing it sort of just on the fly on its own.
I mean, but I was just saying another reason to use up to date tooling is because you'll take advantage of all this stuff.
It is sort of fascinating. Like one of the things that I was helping a colleague out. Just testing one of their apps on the App Store. The things that there's so many things that you don't see in the simulator, especially in the hover effects area, where like the hover effect is like either showing, it's not even showing because like you don't have one there,
right?
Or you're using some kind of custom icon that's like blows out the whole thing so you can't see your hover effect. And the hover effect itself by default is not the shape of your content, your button, right? Your button may be like a square button, but it's always going to be like a capsule shape until you fix that,
right?
So it will just be like a capsule hover over your box button. It just looks horrible, but it's like,
you definitely don't want to just take your iPad app and ship it with Vision. Like you definitely have to go in there, but it's still a lot better than, like I said, like the work you have to do to get a Mac app to feel like a Mac app is a lot worse. What I found with Vision is like it's based more in iOS than Mac OS. Like there's no AppKit stuff, right? So you don't have to do a lot of if-deffing around that kind of thing, like colors, But at the same time, there are things like those hover effects, and you better pay attention to those because if it's anything except a system basic button, it's definitely not going to have the right hover effect unless you make that change. It's relatively easy to do once you learn how to do it. But it's definitely worth taking the time to do those hover effects for sure. And then other little things, like I said, like just starting to notice the platforms. Like I didn't do the straight up 3-pane. Originally, when I made the app for Vision, I basically had the same 3-pane, split navigation view. And what I found was that I kind of fell apart on Vision because the average window size is too thin to hold all 3 of those columns well. And it just looked cluttered. And so basically I took everything on that sidebar and I turned it into a tab bar just for Vision that basically has a couple of the tabs on the side. And then I used the bottom bar to split up other parts that were in that. So I split that functionality across 2 different user interface elements, in other words, to make it more Vision native feely, right?
So how do you actually do that in code? Because I haven't tried that.
Yeah, so basically in SwiftUI, like when you get to your content view, basically it's like if you're on Vision, here's your home, and if you're on if you're on an iPad or iPhone, go here. And so I split that off.
Stuff, or is it?
No, it's basically just it is. I'm sorry, it is an if. So you can see if OS, Vision OS, or if OS, iOS. Views, yeah. So you can make those changes and just use so it's like one view that's different, right? And then all the sub views that are within it all work just fine.
Yeah, I really do like SwiftUI now. I really think it's come a long way.
Oh yeah, tons. And I find like as far as going from scratch to, which is what I like to do most for clients. Like when I do client work, I like to find new startups that are just starting from scratch and they're like doing a brand new app that like I get to open Xcode and create the project myself because I don't have 1,000 dependencies to worry about.
Right.
So whenever I get a chance to do that, I find that SwiftUI gets me from nothing to, this thing actually looks like something the client would like, is like twice as fast as it used to be in
Right.
using old UI kit and the storyboards and all that stuff. I mean,
and
SwiftData
too, I think helps with that too, because once you have stuff in SwiftData, it's just so easy to query it and filter it and just get it up on the screen, and the observable stuff is so nice. There's just like less ceremony around, passing data around or accessing it, and
you're not doing nearly as much extra work.
Now,
so I do find that helps a lot. So SwiftUI definitely helps you move faster in the early stages. Now, I hear what people are saying about like a really complex, much bigger app. There is a point where it breaks down a little bit.
I hit those problems with Swift packages and SwiftUI and previews and Swift. It's like you start getting bigger and modular, and you start hitting a lot of like some friction points, but it's still a lot nicer than I remember UI kit being last time I did that. But then again, I was mostly in Objective-C when I did most of my UI kit, and then some Swift over time. But it's like, you could definitely hit some rough cases, but it works. It's definitely like production ready, as I say. It's been that way, I think, for at least a year. But I think iOS 17, like with the observable stuff and SwiftData, really made the whole this whole build a SwiftUI app like a real like good way of going if you can start new.
Completely.
And, I've enjoyed it.
Totally.
So I just want to make sure about time here. I just want to get Aaron, if you have any.
I was going to say, Aaron, would you like three words, like the Silent Bob? 3 words here.
I already got my 3 words in. I'm good.
And that's Aaron for you. But the other thing that I wanted to ask before we sort of wrap this up is, what is your future? Do you have any future plans for the last word? Do you have any particular features that you're interested in doing it?
Yeah, I mean, a slight mention to it before. Obviously, I want to make the library a lot bigger, so hundreds and hundreds of more drinks. And there is a way in the app, if you're on the app and there's your favorite drink isn't in there, you can submit one to say like, hey, here's a recipe.
Okay.
Where's that go?
It doesn't go directly to the library because I'm not going to let you make a drink of,
But what is it?
It basically just emails me your recipe, and then I can look at it, make sure it's okay, and then I basically import it into my own phone and basically send it off to the library. So
which is a JSON document.
Yeah, basically it turns into a JSON and just it'll basically just add it to my list. Yeah.
Would it even ask you what you wrote your backend stuff in, if anything?
Nothing. I mean, honestly, it's literally just sitting on a server. Like, it's real simple, like nothing fancy whatsoever. Okay. Yeah. And like I said, it's just making that one call, like, go give me this JSON file.
I was hoping you were going to say Perl.
Is that every upload, or how often does it get that?
Just when you go for just when you load for the library. So it's not going to load it every time you launch the app or anything. Just if you need to get to the library, it'll do that first time you ask for the library call. So basically, it's just downloading a file from the internet. And if it can't, then it'll say, sorry, can't connect. I'm
actually kind of curious.
I should cache that better. Like, so like next launch is still there, but I don't want an outdated library.
It's not caching. It's one of the hardest problems in computer science, caching validation.
I was just wondering if there was a way so that you could bundle that through like a resource tag and then just bring it down kind of in the background.
And trust Apple's backend.
Yeah,
maybe, but then if you were to add, and you already have a version, and
so you're gonna have to, if you add to it, you have to. How do you get if the app only downloads the first time and it won't get you?
That's the part that I'm still trying to like wrap my brain of like, how
some kind of script there where I could just set a simple flag. Has this been updated or last updated date?
Actually,
right?
that is
check that date.
Yeah,
or
that's
version,
what those resource things, whatever they're called, the app. What are they called, Kelto? Officially, app
resource tag.
Resource tag. That's what they're meant for. Something like that, where you can you get like a little flag and like, oh, okay, now the app should go check. I keep forgetting that exists. How useful?
Yeah, it's only something they talk about in like game, like the game, sort of like game development stuff. But if you're, it's not restricted to game development, so you can use it.
You could also just like literally write a JSON file on your own server again and do the same thing.
Like if you want a lazy, dirty, quick and dirty way to like get past the sort of app limitations, you just say, you know what, these images don't come in on app on app install, but they will come in on app load.
Right.
And you can do
you can have
do some
bundles,
different-
right, that it pulls down after the fact. Yeah,
after the fact.
Games do that all the
So-
time. So anyway, so there's that. I want the library to be a lot better, obviously, and as it gets bigger, I'm going to need to actually do something about that. It's got to be more than the simple thing it is now, because as it gets bigger, it's going to be a much bigger download. The other thing I really wanted, I alluded to this earlier, is like collections. So I want you to be able to make folders of drinks that like, okay, here's the party for next Friday. Here are the drinks I want to make.
Okay.
So I wanted to have that. And then beyond that, it's more just features as they come. Like I like this idea of the history that you came up with.
Cool,
whatever else people start requesting, I'd be happy to do.
You can do a top 10 list and you share it with your friends.
Yeah, that's like. Well, I was going to do.
That's a bad idea. Don't do that.
No, in the feature, no, but in the it reminded me of something
like
I thought of before, which
social.
is social. You can share right now. Basically, it creates an image. It's I borrowed this from Highball. It basically creates the image of the drink with the recipe, and then there's a little QR code. So you can email that. You can send it off whoever.
What's the QR code do? Like,
it's basically just the URL to the app itself. Basically, it'll open a universal link. So if you have the app to download it, it'll open the app with that recipe up, and then you can import it or not.
Oh, right, because it's an ID of you have them already in your JSON.
Yeah, and then if it doesn't, if you don't have the app installed, it'll basically just open my webpage and basically prompt you to download the app. Eventually, I could actually make the webs. It's where it becomes very obvious that I'm not a web developer, but I could have the web read the JSON, right, and like present that exact cocktail and say, well, do you want this?
My mind keeps going to, what is he doing on the back end? It's like nothing.
Yeah, I'm terrible. Assume everything on the back end is horrible when it comes to me.
You live in my world.
That's
how I approach things.
I'm trying to do that.
Back end, I'm like.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it now, though. I'm trying to be like, I don't want to do any backend. I want to just no dependencies. Make it simple to start with.
Anytime you're like, oh, that's going to have some server costs. Like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's why I use iCloud and CloudKit and stuff like that, because I don't want to roll in server.
People should not pass up the iCloud stuff, despite its limitations, because it's free and it's private, and you don't have to worry about privacy stuff so much. If you're just using a private data source, you don't. Yes, it causes annoyance. Like if you have debugging sometimes, right? You can't reproduce some exact data that a person has. But it's like it's also have to worry about collecting their data and like worrying about how to handle it, and it's just it's not your problem. It's outsourced to Apple.
And like I tell startups all the time, like the key is to get your thing in front of people as soon as possible, right? And so, like, do you want to hire a server person and me? And now you're paying twice as much money, right, to get this thing out the door. Get it to work, and then solve that problem later. And of course, the server person who does get hired will hate me later. But like, it's like sometimes you just have to prove the concept even works, and that the audience even wants your thing, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
So we should. Oh, sorry. We should wrap up a little bit. Wrap up. So, Joe, if there's any way, if you have any way people can find you, how can they do so? Sure.
I'm on Mastodon somewhere. I think it's just Joe Cieplinski at mastodon.social, I think, or something like that. I'm terrible at remembering these things. I try to be Joe C on as many things as possible, but you just go joec.design, you'd get me. You can find my app here at havethelastword.app. Because I was going to say get the last word, but no one gets the last word. You have the last word. So it's havethelastword.app is where you can find the app, and then you can find other things from me from there.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm not a whole lot on socials these days. I'm on Micro.blog and a few other places too, but
which is
joec.design.
Linked off of your main website to your microblog. There's a little link.
Yeah, and you reminded me that this new app is not on my main website yet, so I will be.
It will be. It will be by the time you're listening to this. So you can go to the apps section of joec.design.
Now you put pressure on me to actually do it. Okay.
Do it. Also, Joe, check.
We're pulling a Curtis.
Well, check whatever you're doing for the forwarding, because joec.design was really slow to forward to their main website.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
When I was launching it, so I don't know if it was just me, but when I was doing
you have to just build everything like Curtis built.
Yeah. Well, ask yourself, is it slower than typing Cieplinski out, and remembering how to spell that?
It actually was. It actually was for me. I don't know, because I know, because I've spelled. I've tried to spell your name so many times in like last 48 hours. Like, was the I first or the E first? It's always that. Once I get that right, it's fine.
That's right.
All right. Well,
I had to learn that in kindergarten.
I love it how you had to like learn your own name. Like you had to spend some effort to learn your name. That's when you have an awesome name.
Yeah.
It's a memorable name.
That's right.
All right. Well, that is all that we have for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, leave a review on the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And please share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. All right, Joe, this is the part where normally I do some really horrible programmer jokes.
Programmer
But
dad
because-
jokes.
Programmer dad jokes that I
Okay.
get from Reddit, which is
Awesome.
actually a
Which
a
is
thing,
just yeah,
which
they're
are
hilarious.
horrible.
I remember
But
this. Yeah.
in, but in absence of that, because I didn't have time to do it, I'm actually going to ask you,
Oh.
what are the 3 things you have on your wish list to show up on WWDC?
Great question. This is going to sound out of left field, but like I really, really want to see, and this actually might be coming in this May event, but I want to see a new version of PencilKit that actually, it'd be awesome if it were SwiftUI
Yeah.
native. But even if it just had some more functionality, I've been working on a PencilKit app with a client for a while, and there's so many things we were trying to do with it that it's a little bit limiting, that I'm trying to do like crazy math and UI Bezier curves and all the kinds of crazy stuff. I would love to see more functionality there. So that's definitely a big one for me this year. So hopefully maybe that'll even get announced with these new iPads.
Maybe they'll have a flood fill.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely gonna be a new pencil with something,
That would be great.
so yeah, that's one. I would love to be able to I would love some sort of function to just like turn a font into strokes instead of shapes. Anyway, so
Yes.
long story. But yeah, so there's that. I always want to see more native SwiftUI stuff. So like we have the camera photos picker, but we don't have the take a picture with your camera native, there's these weird things that are missing in SwiftUI that would be so nice to not have to drop down into the UI view representable for constantly. Particularly with the photo capture, especially because I've been making iPad apps lately where people want to take pictures in landscape, and the photo capture since the dawn of time has never supported landscape mode. So you either have to roll your own
Who are
AV
these
capture session.
mythical people.
Yeah.
There's a mythical group of people that use the camera on their iPad.
In landscape, of all things.
In landscape.
So
Who are these people?
yeah, so that's a big one. And then the third one is what we were mentioning earlier. I think I would love to see SwiftData get to the next level, and see them push that even further and make things even more convenient. Like last year, you're right, Stephen, like what they did with revamping observable, right? I mean, all they did was wrap it in macros, right? But it makes life so much easier than the old environment objects and things. So anything like that, those kinds of incremental, I'm always looking for the little bits. I don't want something revolutionary per se. And then if I had a fourth, I would say, I want to see visionOS and what they're going to do with it next. Window management is definitely number one on my list for things. Like I want the equivalent of spaces, and I want it to be 3D aware, and I would love it to be location aware. So in other words, I'm in my living room. This is where Joe likes his windows in his living room, right? I'm in the office. This is where the windows are in the office. I'm at this coffee shop. This is where they should be. You know what I mean? Because like I move around a lot with my vision, and I kind of want my windows to be a certain way depending on where I'm sitting and where the light is.
You take
Makes
your
sense.
Vision Pro to the coffee shop?
I do. I'm that guy. Yeah, I wasn't going to,
my
but then
goodness.
the guys
even-
here
Wow.
encouraged me to do it. I was,
You're
it's
in
pretty.
Boulder.
Wait, Curtis
pretty
does.
awesome.
Does Curtis have a Vision Pro?
No, he has not gotten
No?
one yet. I've
What?
been torturing him about
Wow.
that. Yeah,
I thought he definitely would have got one.
Wow.
Uh,
Oh, man.
talk to
You
him
should- you should
about it.
tell-
He wants to do
you should-
something
you
that's
should-
impossible with it, and that's why he won't buy it out of spite. But
Wait, what is
he wants to
what is
ski
the
with it
impossible
on
thing?
like a moron.
Of
We
course,
were
we
were
joked
saying-
about that. We joked about that here. We didn't think he was actually going to do that.
He wants it to have like a heads-up display while you're
Yeah,
in motion.
I'm
And-
sure.
which is
we
great until your
talked-
battery dies and you ski into a tree. But
It's hard. I've seen people try to do the heads up display while moving. It's not easy to get
Look,
to work.
You know what he needs to do is just start with doing a first person recording revisualization of his so he sits down, he's in his map view, he already has his map view. He goes in first person mode and just goes down the skis, and he has the little colorful bars with the little numbers updating in real time. And maybe he'll have his friends' socials and where their lines are, and you kind of see it almost like a video game.
Right.
And then he can kind of observe how well he did, and where he could maybe you even have some kind of AI generated model that will say, hey, you could have made this turn a little bit tighter this way. Something of that nature.
Totally. Or this is how fast you did versus the last time you did that run.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Yeah.
Even overlays on top of his past performance.
Yeah, I think using it on the slopes it's itself not necessarily not the right version of the Vision Pro for that.
Well, Apple, they literally like you go more than 5 miles an hour, it just turns off.
We had already joked about that before even Vision Pro came out, where we would have a tvOS app and it would basically be a live stream of him crashing into a tree.
And it's on loop.
That's
You should clip that.
Oh my god,
terrible.
Oh well.
Good
Anyway,
thing he doesn't listen to this.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for sure he's not going to listen to this one.
Yeah, he hears I'm on it. He's definitely not going to listen.
Yeah. Till next time. Good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always.
There must be a story behind why it's called The Last Word.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the last word is a very famous classic cocktail.
So that's why we're all ignorant fools.